Hello, this is RICKY, the Android guy. Hey guys, today I'm bringing another side-by-side comparison, and this is of the Galaxy Tab 4 7.0 versus the Nexus 7 2013 edition. Now, of course, the Nexus was a fan favorite of all Android users for a long time. Now, how does this new Samsung device compare to it? We'll find out and find out which one is the best in which categories for you. Now, when it comes to the look and feel of these two devices, we do have a difference between them. With Samsung, they did have a new plastic texture, which is, again, very plasticky, but it does feel nice and doesn't get like fingerprints or scratches as easily as a lot of tablets have in the past. In terms of grip, it has a really good grip around the sides that I really like and very easy to hold one-handed. It's very easy. So I really do like just how simplistic that is to hold one-handed. On the Nexus, I love the texture of the back a little bit more. However, this one, I feel the corners are a little bit more and it's just not as easy to hold one-handed. However, the part where I like the Nexus more so is for the fact of being able to really use it better for gaming when you use it in landscape. I feel when you use it in landscape, this is Samsung's troubling part because of these side buttons right here. So when you're gaming or doing something like that, you might hit them by accident or hit the home button by accident. So that's the one part where I feel the Nexus does outshine the Samsung. But for most aspects, I do like the Samsung overall for the feel better, and I like the look a little bit more, but the feeling when on the backing I like better for the Nexus, as well as this landscape view, so I'm going to have to give this a tie. Now, before we take a look at web browsing, we always take a look at the screen quality difference between the two. Now, on the Galaxy Tab 4 7-inch, we have a 7-inch screen with a 720p resolution at 1280 by 800, coming in with a pixel per inch of 216. And on the Nexus 7 2013 edition, we have a 1080p screen resolution at 920 by 1200, coming in at 323 pixels per inch. So overall, the screen quality is going to be better on the Nexus for all intensive purposes. Now, let's check out and see how each one does at web browsing. And this is a very heavy website, so we'll see how each one loads the website accordingly. And it looks like the Nexus is processing a little bit better right now. And this is when the processing speed seems to be a little leveraged to the Nexus in comparison to the Samsung. But overall, it is taking both a little bit longer. Theoretically, the Samsung should win just for the fact of the lower screen resolution that it has to output. But looks like both are still going. And it looks to be at a standstill for the most part. All right, while it finishes loading, we'll do our comparison. So both move pretty fluidly. The Nexus seems to have a quicker movement in comparison. Let's try pinch to zoom. I would say the Nexus also wins in terms of pinch to zoom, just much more fluid. And let's try double tapping. And it looks like the Nexus 7 is definitely the winner when it comes to web browsing, and it did finish loading the web page first. So as you can see, the Nexus 7 is going to be better for web browsing compared to the Galaxy Tab 4 7.0. Now, when it comes to music playback, we have a difference here that is definitely different in placement. We have on the bottom 2 speakers on the Samsung, whereas the Nexus has the more ideal placement, which is on each side, on the top and the bottom. However, it's on the rear instead of on the front. Samsung does have it on the back as well, so neither one offers the more premium speaker placement out of the two. But we're going to play on the Samsung device, then go to the Nexus, and then go back and forth and see which one is better.
Kinda crazy how the game has changed. The lights go on, they scream my name. The curtain goes down, I remain the same. But all that money don't equal the price of fame. From LA to New York, Seattle to the Bay. Overnight flights to Oahu, we can lay. Y'all go down to Vegas, they know what to say. Love show in Cali. Now a boy with a dream, had my head in the clouds. Now I'm sleeping first class, got a bed in the clouds. Hit my pops to pick me up, and he said he was proud. King shit with a beanie on instead of a crown. Yeah, counting on my blessings. Shout out to the Most High. Started from the bottom, now I'm sick.
So hopefully you could hear it as we did in the studio. The Samsung is definitely the louder of the two and just seems to give the better sound output for listening to music. So if you do want a better music playback, you want to go with the Tab 4. Now, when it comes to video playback, you do have to take 2 things into account. One, Samsung just generally has better vibrant colors when comparing to a Nexus device. Nexus generally are very accurate in color, but very dull in color reproduction at the same time. However, the Samsung does have a 720p display, whereas the Nexus has a 1080p display. So let's take a look at this video and see which one is better. And again, I always use Samsung videos because they don't get flagged. So really, I really do have to give it to the Samsung, unfortunately. And I do appreciate a little bit more detail that we get into this 1080p video on the Nexus screen. But even on things like this, like you see shadow on the guy's t-shirt, whereas you don't see it hardly at all on here. You see just the color reproduction on the white here compared to here, it's just completely bleached out. And on this, more than every time I've watched a video on here, it's just more of a pleasure on the Tab 4. So overall, for a movie watching experience, you want to go with the Galaxy Tab 4. When it comes to the cameras on these 2 devices, we do have a 3 megapixel versus a 5 megapixel in the rear, and both having about a 1.3 on the front. However, the design is also different in terms of Samsung. I would say having a little bit more of a traditional and easier interface, compared to Nexus's more simplistically hidden interface, where it just moves to the side and kind of great for more power users, I would say. Now, in terms of how they end up with photos, well, that's a different story. So first, let's go to the rear camera and see how that one turns out. And on the rear camera, we can definitely see in the detail portion that the 5 megapixel is just easily going to do better compared to the 3 megapixel. All of the lettering just makes it a lot clearer and easier to read. Not to mention the lighting compensation does a better job here as well on this one, whereas this one's a bit too dark. Now on color reproduction, both do a fairly similar job at color reproduction. Again, just the lighting is really off on the Tab 4. Just doesn't compensate for light very much on the rear camera. However, on the front-facing camera, it's an entirely different situation, whereas the Nexus just does not seem to do that well for video chatting, especially just because of the color reproduction is just so far off, as where the Tab 4 does a much better job of staying truer to color and compensating for light better. So I find this very difficult for that reason. And for that reason, we will call it a tie, seeing as how one has a better situation for the front camera and one has a better situation for the rear camera. Now, when it comes to gaming, there's just really no comparison. The Nexus 7 2013 edition just has a much better graphics card. So not only do you have the same games on both devices, but when you're playing them, they will just look a lot better. If you have seen the gaming review for the Tab 4, you saw that it definitely struggled with some higher end games out there on the market. And battery life between the two is comparable, but really the Tab 4 does pull ahead, especially when you're not using the device. It just really doesn't drain as with the Nexus. If you go back to it after a day or two, you will notice that it has drained severely in comparison. So really the Tab 4 does a very good job of usage as well as non-usage on the device. Both tablets will get you over the 6-hour mark. However, with the Tab 4 7-inch, you're more likely to get around the 8-hour mark most of the time, as I've now experienced. Now, when it comes to extras, it's definitely going to go to the Galaxy Tab 4, simply for a couple of reasons. When it comes to hardware extras, you have a memory card reader and a remote control app to control any device in your house, but really also in the software department. You have every software available on the Nexus 7 available on the Samsung because it's still an Android. However, on the Samsung, you do have the extras such as things like Kids Mode, split screen capability, and as well as a far, far superior Office suite in comparison. If you take a look at just the little you can do on docks versus the far more you can do on the Handcom Office version, it just really is a world apart comparing the two. And just so much more that you can do, from inserting charts to watermarks to margins to really having a much greater influence on how the font and the style is in comparison to just kind of bullet points and very basic features to it. So yes, it really does go a long way in comparison on the software and on the hardware side. And finally, when it comes to price point, we do have a difference currently right now because of a sale. So I would like to point out that normally the Nexus 7 is $229. However, right now it is coming in at $199. However, if the Galaxy Tab 4 goes on sale, you can bet it'll be around $169, $159, those kind of price points that the other Tab 3s and 2s in the past have been when they go on sale. So keeping that in mind, typically $199 gets you 8 gigs on the Tab 4, whereas the 16 gig Nexus 7 typically costs $229. Now for $30 extra, obviously you get double the storage, so you do have to keep that in mind, but essentially you are getting the same amount of device for the $199, and therefore for the better bang for the buck, it does have to go to the Galaxy Tab 4 7.0, just simply because normally it is $30 less and you get essentially the same kind of device that you do with the Nexus. All right, now that we tally them up, we have look and feel being a tie. The Tab 4 just has the better one-handed capability, especially in portrait, but in landscape, the Nexus 7 doesn't have those pesky buttons to accidentally press. When it comes to web browsing, the Nexus 7 is going to take it. It was just quicker overall at web browsing, and in terms of pinch to zoom, double tap, everything just seemed to flow smoothly. When it comes to music and movies, though, it will go to the Tab 4 7.0. Better speaker quality and just much more vibrant screen make the movie watching and music listening a much better experience. Now, when it comes to the camera quality, it depends on what you value more, rear camera or front-facing camera. The rear camera easily goes to the Nexus 7, having the 5 megapixel sensor, as well as just the better overall experience for that. And the front-facing camera on the Tab 4 is much better for video chatting over Hangouts or Skype. For gaming, the Nexus 7 will take it, just being the better for gaming capability overall, just because of far, far superior graphics card. For battery life, it will go to the Tab 4 simply because it does have a better standby time and less draining when you are not using the device. In using it, both are pretty comparable, and again, both will get you over that 6-hour mark, but the Tab 4, more times out of not, will give you a better battery life. Extras will also go to the Tab 4, just giving you the micro SD card slot, more software enhancements, and just overall more extras out of the device. And finally, price point will go to the Tab 4, being at $199 normal price for 8 gigs is going to give you a better price point instead of the $229 for a 16 gigs that the Nexus 7's at. So overall, the winner is the Galaxy Tab 4 7.0. This one does take it simply for the fact that you do get a better experience for music, movies, extras, and battery life. However, if web browsing and gaming are more your forte, you definitely want to stick with the Nexus 7. Hopefully you found this helpful. Please give a like, thumbs up if you did. And thank you for watching. This has been RECKY, the Android Guy.